Well, here we are. This picture was from last year, late last summer, just before I started the hay mowing. The old mower had done me well for 20 years, or 15, nearly 20 years, and I thought we'd have another good year. But unfortunately, we had a lot of late growth of grass in August and September. You can see some over the road from the house. And the mower went clickety click as usual, then started going clackety clack, then an enormous double bang to find that the drive shaft had snapped off at both ends on the back of the mower. It had even broken the knife in half, so the whole lot was scraped up and brought home. I couldn't find any spare parts anywhere, so I thought it was time to move on. Nice chap called Steve from Peterborough came over and bought the mower on eBay, and he's now got two broken ones, but they're all broken in different places, so he's hoping he can make a good mower. So it's time to move on, and as you'll see coming up is the successor to the Massey Ferguson 732. Sad to see it go, but I think its time had come. Well, this is the replacement for the old mower. Arrived about 2 months ago. Suffolk 40, originally made in Suffolk, now made at Boston in Lincolnshire. Brand new. It actually became cheaper to buy a new one than to buy a knackered one which needed fixing, and this one's come complete with a PTO. Haven't fitted any of this yet. I just run it arrived to put it in the shed. So today's the day we're going to get it out, just to check and make sure the blades are tight, which I'm sure they are, and just to check where the drain plug is on the transmission. The transmission oil level's okay, but that needs changing at 20 hours use, which will be probably the end of this summer. So I need to make sure I know where the drain plug is, which is underneath and should be nice and clean, rather than having to fumble about trying to find it when there's all grass and muck stuck to it. Now, for those of you in the know, this is a Fergie TEA20 1948 that has the original PTO shaft, which is there, and that is too small and not the correct fitting for a modern piece of machinery. There's another problem. We're using a topper with a Fergie, and the problem is that the Fergie doesn't have a dual clutch, it has a single clutch. So when you're running a thing like a topper that has a lot of inertia built into the rotary action, when you dip the clutch, it disconnects the engine from the gearbox, but it doesn't disconnect the topper from the gearbox. So in other words, the topper with its inertia spinning will keep pushing the tractor forward. You can stand on the brakes as much as you like, and you won't stop it. So if you've got a pond, tree, road person or whatever coming up, you're going to flatten them. So what we put in is an overrun clutch, and that's what this is. So this goes on the original spline, adapts the spline to the new dimensions for the topper, which is obviously metric. No, it's not metric, it's imperial, but it's a different size. But also in this clutch, there's an overrun. So when you dip the clutch on the tractor, it will stop the PTO, and this will still allow the rotary action of the flail to keep going round without pushing the tractor forwards. And I'll show you how that sort of operates. So what you have to do, it's a greasy old thing. This nut here comes off, the plug comes out. I've greased it hugely. They arrive when you buy them ungreased. So you put this onto the spline on the tractor, then put a roll pin through, that plug comes out and you knock a roll pin through, and I'll have a go at doing that now. Now, getting it all lined up is a bit of a challenge, but you've got to get the hole in here with the sleeve that's inside and with the hole through the PTO shaft all lined up. As you can see, they are. So the next job is to knock in the roll pin, which has got to be knocked right through just on the middle part of this. So this outer sleeve here, this is going to freewheel in one direction and not the other. So the roll pin, it's obviously got to be through, otherwise it would restrict this turning. So we'll have a go at that next. Right, I've knocked the roll pin into the hole, and using a drift here, I just knocked it a little bit further just to get it in the right place. And you know when it's in the right place is when this starts to do what it's supposed to do. Now if I turn it that way, that's freewheeling. If I turn it that way, it's turning the PTO on the tractor, which means it's working properly. That way, you can almost hear it clicking. There's like a ratchet inside. And that way, it's driving the PTO on the tractor. So in other words, the tractor's rotation is this way, which will then turn this way as well. But when the tractor PTO stops running, this will then freewheel that way with the topper. But getting the roll pin in, you've got to get it in far enough so it's just through the middle of the shaft and not connected to this outside, but which can then freewheel. So I'm going to just put a little bit more grease in there, not that it's short of grease, but grease is quite important. Put the plug back in one side and the grease nipple in the other. But as you can see, it goes in quite well into this housing, so it should stop any grass and muck getting in there when we've got the thing in operation. But let's put this back together. Okay, well, you can see the topper is now on the tractor. Fergie top link on there, Cat 1 linkage. PTO drive isn't on yet because it's a bit too long. Apparently they're always sold a bit long and you've got to trim them down, but I've read the instructions. I think I know how to do it. The rear wheel is now the right way up, and that's how it would work. That's with all the spacers on that axle. They're all underneath. There's 3 different lengths of spacers, sort of 4 inches, 3 inches and 2 inches, I suppose, or something. But as you can see, that's quite a long way off the floor, so I've got some brambles to cut on the first outing. So I think I'll just probably take the big one out because there's some big old devils in there that will take some chewing up. So I don't want to get it bogged down too much in the first cut. But so far so good.